Welcome to another broadcast of the Lorain County Commissioners' General Meeting. Unless otherwise announced, meetings are held Thursday mornings at 9:30 at the Lorain County Administration Building, 226 Middle Avenue, 4th floor, downtown Elyria. These are public meetings, and as always, you are invited to attend.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good morning and welcome to the September 23rd meeting of the Board of Commissioners. We have seats down front, just like in church. Madam Clerk.
We just concluded the public hearing on the subdivision. 3 o'clock, there will be a Planning Commission meeting here in the public hearing room. Under Resolutions Number 1, Job and Family Services Bills.
So moved. Second.
Discussion. Ms. Vacy? Aye. Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Mr. Moore?
Aye.
Investments.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Mr. Moore?
Aye.
Ms. Vacy? Aye. Appropriations.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Mr. Moore?
Aye.
Ms. Vacy?
Aye, with the exception of page 5 of 6, Clemens announcements.
Transfers.
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
Discussion.
Yes. Mr. Ennis, I received several complaints. Number 1 of 12 discussed the number of absentee ballots being requested at the Board of Elections. And I don't know, as commissioners, do we have any, I mean, we do fund the Board of Elections, but is the responsibility of the validity of absentee ballots up to them? Or is there, because I've received several complaints from the community regarding some of the activities of these groups. I mean, is there something we can do, or is that something that, you know, do you just make a note to the Board of Elections that you have issues and then they deal with it, or does the prosecutor's office do any investigations?
Well, any complaint regarding the election should go through the Board of Elections. They would then...
That would be their responsibility to notify to the
us
prosecutors?
Yes.
Okay.
I guess I'm... not exactly sure what you're referring to is...
Well, if I'm getting the... Well, basically, if I'm getting the complaints, then I should probably refer those to the Board of Elections and let them make the decision on what to do.
I mean, you can copy us and we'll take a look at it too, because we work in tandem with them.
Okay. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Ms. Vacy? Aye. Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Mr. Moore?
Aye, with the exception of number 1 of 12.
Advances and repayments?
So moved.
There were none.
No, there wasn't any.
And I
Requisitions?
withdraw my motion.
So moved on the requisition.
Second.
Discussion. Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Mr. Moore?
Aye.
Ms. Vacy?
Aye, with the exception of 1570.
Travel expenses?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Mr. Moore?
Aye.
Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Ms. Vacy?
Aye.
Bills?
So moved. Second.
Discussion. Ms. Vacy? Aye. Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Mr. Moore?
Aye.
Number 9, authorize various personnel actions as indicated on the summary sheet for employees within the jurisdiction of Lorain County Board of Commissioners.
So moved, with the exceptions of number 2 and 3.
Second.
Discussion. Mr. Moore?
Aye.
Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Sorry, Ms. Vacy.
Aye.
Ms. Blair?
Aye, with no exceptions.
And Under the Commissioners, number 10, amend resolution number 02291 adopted April 11, 2002, leasing certain parking spaces. Said amendment will increase the number of parking spaces by the county to 40 and increase the amount per month to $600 at $15 per space. This lease will expire April 2005.
Mr. Cortez, I assume that you're recommending this?
We already rent spots in this lot. It's just been expanded. As we get ready to do the demolition over on 2nd Street, parking is tight already. It's going to become even tighter. So we're trying to gather up any available spaces within a responsible walking distance of our facilities for the winter. We're not going to be able to get the parking lots in before winter, and I'm not sure that we're going to be able to backfill those sites sufficiently enough and get compaction before the weather turns bad to even use those sites. So we need these parking spots.
Even with the additional spots at the Justice Center?
Well, the unfortunate issue with the spots at the Justice Center was that we brought people from outlying areas back into downtown Elyria. Now, they didn't consume all the parking spots at the Justice Center, but there was enough gain of vehicles that there was quite an offset on those parking spots. Specifically those people that came back from the Gates building that were occupying the 3rd floor there. So we didn't significantly increase our inventory of parking spaces with the opening of that parking lot. Plus, some of those spots had to go to, out of necessity, for public parking, so some of them were restricted to that. So the net gain was only a dozen, maybe 15 parking spots over there when you count it all out. So we're still looking for parking spots. When we start the demolition, the parking lot in between the Bobles building and the old bank building are going to be sectioned off for the demolition, and then there's a parking lot between the Court Street building and the Bobles building that's going to be unavailable to us. And I'm not sure they're going to become back available to us before the real poor weather sets in at the end of the year. It all depends on how the weather holds up and whether we can get backfill and compaction done. But even then, I'm not sure that the substrate is going to be sufficient enough to allow parking where the buildings were torn down, or what the material condition of the existing parking lots that are already in poor condition are going to be, whether we can continue to use those and just fence them off with some temporary snow fence. There's a lot of unknowns here, and we need more parking spots to get through the winter. This won't be the first request I'm bringing back to you. If we can find more, we will still be looking for them. Hopefully this is the last year we have to go through this.
So this is 40 spaces.
No, it'll increase it to 40. I believe it's an increase of 15 parking spaces. We already rent, I believe, 25 spots in that lot. We'll increase the number of parking spaces by the county to 40.
It's going to bring it up to 40, but it's 15 new spots.
I believe that's correct, Commissioner. I know it's not 40 new spots. It's about 15 more spots. They've expanded over where they have more parking.
Also move.
I'll second.
Discussion. Further? Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Mr. Moore?
Aye.
Ms. Vacy?
Aye.
Number 11, restore the county's budget at least 2% of the 2.5% of the appropriation cuts.
Mr. Cortez, you sent a letter to the commissioners regarding this. Would you like to speak to this issue?
Early in the year, late last year, when we did the annual appropriation, which most people refer to as the annual budget, we indicated, based upon the revenue numbers at the time that appeared to be soft, that we should limit the appropriations so that we didn't over-appropriate. And there was discussion at that point about looking at the numbers after the first quarter towards the mid-year point to see how those numbers were stacking up against the reality of the revenue we were receiving. The revenue, while I wouldn't call it strong, it has been more than projected, and it makes available funds to provide that appropriation back to these departments. It's something that we had to look at, and it's a recommendation we had to make to the board, and it's up to you whether you believe that they weren't getting those funds or not. The funds are available. The money was there. There's a couple of departments that are ailing in their salary accounts, but I think I indicated to you in my correspondence that it was up to the departments where to place their cuts and not place their cuts. So I'm not using that generally as a guide to say that you should do this. They were supposed to prepare for the eventuality of not getting any additional funding. I'm not sure that they all did that or how they were going to handle it at the end of the year. But there are some funds that are ailing out there right now in their salary accounts. And again, as I indicated in the correspondence, if the numbers had gone the other way, I very well may be sitting here asking you to cut appropriations that have already been given to these departments. Thankfully, that's not been the case, but I will not say that we're in a hugely strong position, but we're in a stable position.
Thank you. Well, I have a
What time
concern.
was the agenda completed, Teresa?
Yesterday,
What time?
I faxed it out at probably 2 o'clock.
At 2 o'clock? I didn't receive any drafts this week.
I sent them to
Did
you.
you? I didn't get any.
And I emailed you the additions to the
Paula?
ones, too.
I never got it.
No.
I never got it.
Must be your computer equipment's not working.
No, my computer works.
That was supposed to be Joe.
Yeah, well, that's why I want this stuff 48 hours in advance, since I just read it just now. Real small line on the top of the paper, and I didn't even see it until just now, so. Sorry, Miss Banksy, I didn't mean to interrupt you, so.
John, I have a question. With the costs for the indigent attorney fees on the rise, and I mean going up high, are we going to be able to do this to increase the budgets for the individual departments by 2%?
Yes, that's...
I mean, overall, that's going to be do you know how much it's going to be? 2% of...
$682,000.
Yes, that's exactly right.
$682,000 for all the departments?
Yes,
Total?
I provided that in the correspondence. I give you a breakdown of 1%, 2%, 2.5%, 3%, 3.5%, $682,000.
Okay, thank you.
And just to add to Mr. Cordez's comment, it's approximately $853,000 for 2.5%, if the 2.5% were granted. So there's some difference there.
We're safe to do this with the local government funds, the cuts and
Commissioner, that's
cuts in the indigent attorney costs?
it's an excellent question. The cuts in local government, Auditor Stewart and the Budget Commission passed out their information on local government for next year. They're taking a very conservative approach, and they're looking at a freeze. The numbers are down a little bit on that area. Our biggest concern is what the state's going to do with regard to possibly stripping all that money from us. Not just us, libraries, counties, cities, villages. As you well know, it's going to be an issue that's in hot debate, again, coming up very, very soon at the state level. Not to mention, not to belabor the issue, but we also have the population that seems to be shifting in favor of the urbanized area away from the rural areas of the county. While we can watch that, we're prevented by Ohio Revised Code regulations from saving money to prevent what will happen when that occurs. We're just not allowed to do it. It's one of the areas where, good fiscal management is prevented by the prevailing regulations. Those things are all being taken into consideration, but the reality is that while we know they're going to occur, we're not allowed to properly plan for them. To properly plan for them, we would put more money in a rainy day fund, we would put more money in budget stabilization funds, and as the board knows, we're only allowed to save 5% of our prior year's general fund budget in that rainy day
Public
fund.
defenders' costs is what,
We're down to 30% on reimbursement from the
right,
state.
they're supposed to be giving us 50%, and we're down to 30%. They keep reducing it.
But you can't plan for the future by not expanding government, okay?
I'm not indicating that we should expand. I'm indicating we should restore.
I'm not saying we're restoring here either. My concern is how much money are we looking at when the population shift talks, since you and I have had this discussion several times in private, but never in public.
Based upon the last numbers I've seen from the Budget Commission, $3.3 million, sir.
So we're looking at our budget is going to be decreased, and that's probably going to happen in what year do you think? 05, 06?
I believe we got maybe 2 years, depending on,
left.
there's a couple issues that need to be discussed, but it'll possibly be, it could occur within the next 2 years.
Correct.
It could. That does not mean it will. I think there's a difference of opinion about when
And
and
if.
or if that will
Right.
occur.
Granted.
Thank you.
Well, actually, you know, the departments took the cuts. They worked with us when we had hard times, so if we can give them the 2% now to increase their budget, I think we should.
Yes,
Are you-
it's feasible.
Making that in the form of a motion, Commissioner Vacy?
I will move.
I will second.
Any further discussion?
And that's
Yes.
for the 2%.
2%.
Yes.
Commissioner Moore?
As we all know, I didn't support the budget due to the lack of timing and effort that we didn't have in preparing it. I'd like to start working on next year's budget, but I'm in fear of doing it now. Would look to, I'd rather wait till after the November 2nd election so that we can take all, so nobody know that we'd be doing it for the right reasons and not for political reasons. My idea is to take the budget, which is this tall, and maybe just take the general fund budget, which is roughly $55 million, break it down, and have every department, maybe 3 per meeting, come in and explain their budget. Because I didn't like what I've seen already. Some of these departments have extra employees budgeted into their salaries. But I do not wish to go public with that information now because it would be looked upon as maybe partisan. So I prefer maybe for the 05 budget that, with the permission of this board, that we look at it earlier, since we already have it, and maybe have public discussions on each department, and article, maybe in groups of 2 or 3, depending on the size of that budget. That would be something that,
I think the departments would appreciate it too.
yeah. Okay. Well, I just wanted to make that known, because we won't have much time after November 2nd.
Because there's a lot of times the departments need an increase, and they don't have the opportunity
Well, what I
to
saw
bring
when
it
I-
before the commissioners. So it works both ways.
Correct. I learned a lot when I first took office and sat down with most of the departments on their budget. A lot of them appreciated the conversations that we had, and I felt that maybe we should have gone more of a public discussion on each and every department, but we'll see if we can do it this year.
It's something we discussed several times.
With Montgomery County and some
Yeah.
of the
Our budget spending levels are, John, well, they're pretty similar to 2002, right? Except for things like healthcare and so forth?
There were 2 freezes and then, of course, the reductions. So there's been increases, but relatively,
Minor.
yes.
Right, I mean, it's been,
compared to past.
the last few years, I'm not going to say that they were overly lean, but they've been, the spending has slowed
Oh, yeah.
significantly. There's some things that we obviously have no control over. We try to balance that with things like health care and so forth, but on the line item budgets, I think that the board has done a wonderful job in a cooperative effort with these departments to slow what was a very rapidly accelerating growth over the last few years.
Yeah. We have to
Okay.
give the department heads a lot of credit, and
Yeah.
the other elected officials.
Okay, thank you.
Any further discussion? Ms. Vacy?
Aye.
Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Mr. Moore?
Nope.
Under the Community Development Department, instruct the clerk to advertise the notice as the second public hearing for the filing of an application to the State of Ohio to participate in the Small City CDBG Economic Development Program. This hearing will be held on Thursday, October 7th at 9:45 a.m. The notice will be published in the Chronicle Telegram on September 24th and October 1st.
So moved.
Second?
Discussion? Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Mr. Moore?
Aye.
Ms. Vacy?
Aye.
Under CBCF, instruct the clerk to advertise for bids for a single prime contractor, including plumbing, fire suppression, HVAC, and electrical for alterations and additions for the Lorain Medina CBCF. This notice will be published in the Morning Journal on September 28th and October 5th, and bids will be opened on October 19th at 2 p.m. in the Commissioners' Back Conference Room.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Ms. Vacy?
Aye.
Mr. Moore?
Aye.
Under the Common Pleas, support the hiring of a court administrator in the amount of $70,000 plus benefits and a secretary in the amount of $40,581 plus benefits for the Lorain County Common Pleas Court General Division.
This request we received earlier from Judge Zaleski. I believe, are you Tim Luby?
I am.
Here to speak to the issue?
Yes, ma'am. The judge is in trial right now, so he apologizes. I believe the commissioners we've forwarded in past meetings a description of the duties and responsibilities that we would anticipate the court administrator assuming. In addition to the court administrator, we're also asking for a secretary to assist this individual. The secretary we anticipate would serve dual purposes, would be a secretary for the court administrator, as well as we've discussed in the past with respect to the court's increasing docket. The Supreme Court of Ohio has indicated that they will give us a visiting judge for a short period of time, and we would anticipate that the court administrator secretary would also serve as a secretary for the visiting judge. So that's what we're asking for today.
Okay. I'm kind of looking for some information.
Sure.
Like when the domestic relations came in here, they brought in some spreadsheets showing probably from 1997, 98 up until 04 on the caseloads, and there was some spreadsheets that I would like to get regarding this, which just and a lot of this thing I don't think you can get this information. I think you're gonna need our budget director to help you.
Okay.
Because what I'm looking for is like how many cases, maybe just the last 5 years.
We actually, I don't know if the commissioners still have it.
How many were actually tried? How many were maybe dismissed or mediated?
Yep.
And then I need it broke down to be the common pleas, domestic, general, and then we have a city, the Court of Appeals and the muni courts. And the problem what we're having right now with our indigent fees is everything's going through the roof on that end.
Sure.
And I don't know. I mean, I'd rather see the information before I say anything or
I don't know if
vote,
the commission, about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, we provided as a fairly thick packet to the commissioners on the issue of the when we asked for a new additional judge, and that packet contained all the statistics. It had actually a fairly lengthy, and I can provide that to the commissioners again.
Yeah, 'cause this is the only thing I have on the 6th judge is this.
Okay.
I don't have.
It's probably
I know
about
it's a lot
that thick.
thicker than this, and I don't have.
And I can provide you guys an
that.
additional copy if you want, but it actually lays out and shows all the cases we tried, the increases in cases. It looks at Lorain County in comparison to the other counties of similar population.
I'm not concerned about that. What I'm concerned about is what's going on in Lorain County.
Okay.
And because I know, we are one of the largest counties in the state, so
Right.
I'm not too concerned about that. My concern is I'll be looking at just the actual, because I kind of liked what the domestic relations did when they came in and they were requesting more funds.
Okay.
And they wanted to hire some people, and they had it on a per judge. They broke it down to a per judge, the increase, and had it, and I think that's where we're going to go with the 6th judge when they were discussing that.
Sure.
And that's kind of what I was looking for.
Okay.
If I could get a copy of that
Sure.
report again, I don't know if like I said, this is all I have on the 6th judge.
Okay.
Or not a 6th judge, maybe I filed it under 6th judge and we're talking about the court administrator now.
Sure.
Maybe that's where it's at.
And they're related, but they're separate. I mean, I think one of the things we were struck with when we had the we asked the Supreme Court to come down about 3 years ago and assist us in managing our ever-increasing docket load. And one of the things they instructed us is they were surprised that a court of our size did not have a court administrator. And one of the recommendations before they would even support the addition of a 6th judge was that we first get a court administrator to help us with our administrative needs. And again...
And is there a reason why as the commissioners, we have to approve that for you? 'Cause
Well, we like to, I mean, obviously, the court and the county budget are separate things. And the court, I think their preference is always to get the support of the county commissioners. I think under the statutes, you're not technically required to do that, and the court has the power to approve their own budget. However, I think in order for good community relations, the court always wants to go through the commission
No,
as
I know,
possible.
because about when I first took office, one of the first things that was brought to my attention was the indigent fees, in which they're at $50 per visit, and they wanted to increase it to $60.
Sure.
And I said no, and I don't think anyone else supported that.
Okay.
Yet we've doubled every year, which makes me wonder if, I don't understand why in the last 4 years, it's increased as high as it has, where now we actually don't have money in those accounts, and we have to fund it that way. So basically, it doesn't matter, I guess, if there's not enough money there. You're going to get it anyway. So, and it's not, I mean, it's just by statute. Yeah, I know
Sure.
it's out of our control, so.
Sure.
So
So
my concern was just, I mean, I didn't have that information. If I do, it's probably filed under the 6th judge issue and not the,
I'd be more than
that
happy
one.
to provide you another
yeah,
copy.
if, you know, if you want to look for it first, or how hard would it be for you to get me a copy? How quick? And
I can have one over for you
Today?
in 20 minutes.
okay, that would be good.
Yeah.
A bit quicker
I have a
than
little
through
concern
boxes.
too. The secretary, $40,581 annually brings it like $20 an hour for a secretary?
We would actually
That's
ask
high.
that the secretary be compensated the same as the other secretaries in the general division.
See, I told you ours were underpaid.
Yeah, private sector doesn't. I mean, they would get probably about 1/3 of this.
Well, do they need
Unbelievable.
any legal experience for anything like that? Law clerk or anything? Or
We would
just-
actually, our preference would be someone that has legal background because the individual, as I said before, would perform a dual role, both assisting the visiting judge, which we hope to get from the Supreme Court, as well as assisting the court administrator. If you look through, I don't know if you still have in your possession the duties and responsibilities that we expect from the court administrator, and a lot of those are legal as well as administrative functions.
Yeah, I can understand the administrator, but the secretary, that's, in my opinion, that's ridiculous.
Could we hold this until we get more information?
I'd be more than happy to provide you guys with another copy of the proposal that we did for the 6th judge.
It would have that information I'm asking for in there, correct?
It'll have that information, yes, sir.
Okay, could you get if you, yeah, I want to get a copy to Mr. Rokas. I don't know if he has that or not. Do you have that, do you think?
I'll look for that.
Okay. If not, I'll have a copy made.
Is there any other questions I can ask from the commissioners?
No, I think Dave did a good job.
You think so? Let me just
Yeah.
wait.
Yeah, I'd
Put
like
on
to wait.
hold.
Thank you, Tim.
You're welcome.
Hey, thanks for coming up.
Not a problem.
Okay.
Under the engineers, number 15, authorize Lorain County Engineer to apply for Ohio Department of Public Safety funds to update the no passing zone studies on county roads and perform signal warrant studies at 2 intersections. The total cost of these projects is $21,365, with the grant being on a reimbursement basis and has to be filed by September 30, 2004.
So moved.
Second?
Discussion. Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Mr. Moore?
Aye.
Ms. Vacy?
Aye.
Under the sheriff, instruct the clerk to advertise for bids for Lorain County Jail hot water boiler replacement. This notice will be published in the Chronicle Telegram on September 28th and October 5th, and bids to be open on October 12th at 2 p.m. in the Commissioners' Public Hearing Room.
So moved. Second.
Discussion. Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Ms. Vacy?
Aye.
Mr. Moore?
Aye.
Approve and enter into a licensing agreement on behalf of Lorain County Sheriff with Swank Motion Pictures, Inc. to license the Sheriff's Department to show copyrighted movies to the inmates. The existing Swank license agreement expired on August 30th, and the new 3-year agreement is effective retroactive to September 1st, 2004 through August 31st, 2007. The annual license fee is $676 for a total of $2,028 to be paid from the inmate commissary fund.
So moved.
A second?
Discussion. Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Mr. Moore?
Aye.
Ms. Vacy?
Aye.
Mr. Cortez, County Administrator?
I have nothing this morning, thank you.
Mr. Ennis, Assistant County
No
Prosecutor?
report?
Commissioners report.
Commissioner Vacy?
I have nothing this morning.
Commissioner Moore?
Done?
Old business? Other than what's known? Number 1, the decision on the Overland Road, Amherst Township Sewer Improvement Project 109.
Mr. Cortez, you have some figures for us?
Well, actually, we've had multiple discussions concerning the sewer project, and we've met here, we've met out in the township, we've met here, we met in the township. The last time we met out at the township hall in Amherst Township, after several hours of discussion, one of the good things that came out of that was a unanimous decision by the township trustees to support the sewer project, but there was a request by the trustees that we try to share in the interest to some degree on the long-term bond that will be used to construct the sewer and then assessed back to the homeowners. If the board was to partner on the interest, and I'm assuming about a 5% interest rate on approximately $430,000 worth of construction fees, the interest would be about, and I'm giving you round numbers because we don't have the exacts right now, so they're within ballpark figures. Our share of the interest would be approximately $115,000. Now, if we pay our interest up front by lowering the overall cost of the bond, which is the only way I can see that we can practically do this, we would probably pay about $75,000, $70,000 up front, because we wouldn't be financing our cost and our interest would be prepaid, so we would reduce the construction cost. So in order to share half of the interest on the construction, it would cost the board in the neighborhood of $70,000 or $75,000. And that was the last discussions we had with the trustees pursuant to a request by this board to go out and have further discussion.
I would be a little bit concerned doing that, because if we do it for this project, you might as well be ready to do it for all the others too.
I agree, Commissioner Vacy. I've always worried about that concern. There's some. There are some.
I disagree. I think the fact that these people were sold a bill of goods in 1987 gives them the right to say, hey, there's a verbal contract that we didn't have to tap in. There's a verbal contract when they came back years later saying, don't worry about it, we'll take care of you. The airport's going to take care of it. It's an economic development. Verbal contracts are flying all over. Now we're forcing these people to spend money when they've been told they didn't have to.
And I agree with Commissioner.
So that's why this is different than any other sewer project that we've worked on.
I agree with you there, that this has been a forced issue on these people.
Right.
And I voted against the project in the first place. I've always been against the project to start with. But the thing, this is the Amherst sewer, isn't it?
It's the Oberlin Road sewer out to, with the laterals
Amherst
going out
Township.
into the airport. Yes, Commissioner.
Well, a lot of those systems are already working. I don't think we should be forcing these people to tie in anyway.
Commissioner.
But are we forcing them to tie in,
No,
or are we just putting in
well,
laterals?
because-
Let me go there, and I'm not going to be contrary, I'm just going to give you information.
Go ahead.
The health department's going to force these
Right.
people to tap in one way or another. Now, under the code, either the health department or the board of commissioners can require that tap in. We have not required that tap in, so we're not forcing anybody to do anything. If we do not do this project, I have spoken to the health department, they will issue the letters to tap in, and each property owner will be individually responsible for dealing with the issue singularly on their own. I agree with Commissioner Moore that there is some issues here that could be justified, used as justification to support partnering on the interest rate on this note that are unique to this project that could be defended in other projects, so that we wouldn't be setting a precedent, so to speak.
I'm talking about doing more than just that. I'm not talking about
This
just
is the
thinking
one going
interest.
to the, that would tie it into the airport.
Yes, Commissioner.
Right.
May I ask what your proposal is?
Well, I'm still trying to look at what's been going on for the last 2 years on this project here.
So then, in
Because
other
the-
words, it's my understanding, excuse me, that if we don't do this as a group, do this now, so that all the residents there get into it right now, and the health department comes in and tells them to do it individually, then they have to pay up front. If they do it as a group, then they're assessed, correct?
Correct, over 20 years.
And they have 20 years to pay it.
Yes. Also, the health department has made some consideration into, with regard to the time frame that these people would have to tap in. The laterals we're going in, I believe there's a 7-year window, as long as their system on site is working and functioning, has been inspected, and is not deficient, that they have up to 7 years before they would have to tap in and use those laterals that were placed at the property line. I think the trustees are here. I don't have a copy of that agreement. Does one of the trustees have a copy of that agreement with the health department? Neil, am I accurate? Did what I said, is it accurate what I said?
Yes.
Yes, other than that, there is the condition that the residents must show financial need and also agree to a maintenance contract or inspections on the private system.
So they'll have, if they have a good system and they meet those terms and conditions, they'll have up to 7 years to tap into those laterals.
they'll have 7 years. But it's my understanding that if they don't do this as a group now, they can't be assessed later if they do it individually. Am I correct, or?
You're correct. They can, this would be the group project. And my further
So
understanding...
how can they have 7 years?
Because we'll put the laterals at the property line. If they meet the terms and conditions, the health department will give them up to 7 years before they mandate the tap into that lateral at the property line.
So there's two costs here. There's the cost of putting in the laterals and the cost to tap in. Health department's now saying you have 7 years to tap in, so...
They have certain conditions, but yes, that's correct.
Oh, so yeah, you know, then there's that little star at the bottom that says certain conditions, so...
P.S.
Yeah, PS. Yeah, they got PS, all right. Okay, well, I mean, from what I've heard on this issue, from the residents coming up here, they're pretty upset regarding how this was sold to them as an economic development issue. And that not to worry about it, you won't have to tap in, okay? I have issues with that. I think that's a verbal contract. I think there's some legal issues here. I think the fact that the airport went out and spent $1.2 million more than they should have on a building, yet that money could have been used for the people that are actually paying taxes, people that live here, people that work here, they have their homes here, and we're talking about $417,000 here to put in laterals that probably should have been done in '87. Now, there's more cost here, as we had at our public hearing that we had, and I don't have the date here, but it was back a year ago, where the actual cost was going to be about $95.35. That was that's the laterals, the cap fees, permit fees, the connects, and the construction. So we're looking at a $10,000 cost to each homeowner, even though we're talking about $52.18. But the good thing is the health department has said you don't have to tap in right away if you don't have to. Now, some of these sewers or septics I hear are really don't even need to be tapped in, from my understanding, because of the sand samples. They're probably one of the best in the county. Now, are they going to be forced to tap in, or is that going to be an economic issue?
That's the properties down on Middle Ridge, and Mr. Connie can speak to that better. Is he here?
Wayne Bishop
Guess he
is
can't
here.
speak to anything.
Jack?
Is that the Middle Ridge properties? Is
Yeah,
that the
the
ones
Middle
we're
Ridge.
talking about? With the ones that are deep, where they had the good...
All I'm asking is the health department forcing those people to tap in? Okay, so it doesn't matter then that they've spent the money. So,
Does the health department have anything in writing that says that they're not going to go after these people for
There's no
7
agreement.
they
years?
are going after these people.
There's an
They are, I
agreement.
know.
There's an agreement with the township trustees. Mr. Lynch is in possession of that agreement. We met out at the health department, and he met subsequent to that with them, and they have an MOU that'll be binding on the parties.
Yeah, well, I mean, I still think that no matter, there's no way that these people are not going to get away without paying something. I mean, that's how I see this. That's where it's heading. So, I think the lateral should have been put in the first place. I think that would be a nice resolution to this, is just to pick up the tab for the $417,000. Let the rest of the residents pick up the tab for the rest. That's a 50-50 split. Government made a promise, and nothing was in writing. You put in the laterals, that should have been done years ago. We're going to be digging up streets, is my understanding. So it's going to cost a lot more to do it now, because of a department that's not elected is forcing these people to do it. So the money's there. I think if we can spend an extra $1.2 million to buy a building that was only worth $800, I think we can spend $417,000 to help the residents that are paying property taxes at our own homes, and I think that's been sold a bill of goods back in 1987. But that's just my thoughts.
I agree with you, and I believe that I want to see whatever the health department put in writing.
Neil, you have it with you?
Didn't get it in writing, though, when they were told them they didn't have to tap in, but now when they're forcing it, they're getting it in writing.
Yeah.
So.
Okay.
Thank you.
How many copies you have quite a bit.
Thank you. Jerry, you want one? Because he loves our...
You want to get one to Jim?
Copy for Jerry by chance, ma'am?
Jerry?
I'll make it.
You can share it. You and Jerry.
So it's pretty, is there,
It says 90 days here.
yeah, on the back here. It goes right back to the, something that's very subjective, which is the relief would only be available to property owners who demonstrate financial need. Now, everybody I know has financial needs, so,
Yeah.
you know.
So where'd you see that?
It's on the second page, yeah, flip it over. Oh, right there. And then all the dates are right in here. June 1st of 2012. I don't think does the health department, I don't believe they charge $25 per year for each permit, do they? That's something we've been trying for about, well, I know I've been trying for a couple of years to get that, so.
One way or another, they're going to give them 90 days unless they can prove financial
Prove that they're broke.
stress. Yeah. So why are we voting on this at all?
Well, just
Just to what?
hey, we're not voting. I'm voting on supporting, taking care of it today and making it
Seems
right.
like
We
these
wanna make
people
it-
don't have a choice.
That's what I'm saying. We can make it right, though.
Yeah, we can give them a portion of the money to help out.
Correct. I think the discussion now is how much is appropriate.
I've heard two suggestions. One was $70,000 to $75,000 to assist in a portion of the
Offset the-
assessment cost, and the other was $417,000 to pay for the
Just the laterals.
laterals, all of them.
And then they have to deal with the rest, which is another $4,200. But that's what's going to cost. That's not even counting the cost to collapse their system.
Right.
So,
No, I think that's including that cost.
not from what I got in here. I got a $2,000 connect, $40 permit, $200 cap.
I don't think it's $2,000 to connect. Wayne, what's the connection for the city of Lorain hookup?
Wayne, would you come up to the microphone, please?
Okay, Commissioner, right now, we have a $40 county permit fee.
Correct.
We have a $200 capital improvement fee paid to the city of Lorain.
Correct.
We have a $225 tap-in fee for a
Yep.
total. That's a total of $465.
Right, and right above that, I have a $2,000 connect fee when we were in a public hearing.
That is a estimate of somewhere between $1,500 to $2,500 to connect to the lateral at the right-of-way and run back to your foundation to hook into the house, into the sewer.
Oh, that's on their property, the residents'
That's what we,
property.
that's
I know
what we
that.
call lateral connection fee.
Right,
yeah.
I know, but that's written down there. We made it sound like it's only $400. It's $2,000.
No, the $465 is what you have to pay up front for the total connection fee to the city and to the county. Everything else is paid by the property owners to their sewer tappers.
Correct.
And we estimate that to be anywhere from $1,500 to $2,500 in that
Right, so I
neighborhood.
put 2,000 down.
Yeah.
How much does it cost to, I also, after we came up with 7683, but I didn't know that up, I came up with 1852 construction fee, or construction.
I think what you've done, you've added all that together. If you look at
No.
the...
It took us an hour to get to this point. I remember the meeting, so. I have underneath that was a 1,852 construction, unless that was a construction cost, which was underneath.
I have $5,200 per resident.
Well, yeah.
Is that what you have?
Well, yeah, I have 2,000 connect, 'cause I took the average from 1,500 to 2,500, $40 permit, 200, 225, 528, 7683 is a total cost, plus 1852 construction for 9535, and after a long discussion, we came up with that was the number, not counting the collapse of their system. That's what I
Well,
have written down for
that
the public.
2,500, that 15 to 2,500 includes the septic tank abandonment and tying into the lateral out of the street.
Abandonment, that does include that?
Yeah, it does. Now, you're going to have different costs. Everybody's tapped in the past. I'm sure everybody has a different cost. Some people might have paid $1,500, some people might have paid $2,500 or even higher if their house was, say, 300 or 400 feet off. But we're just talking about properties that's within 200 feet of the right-of-way.
So, Wayne, if we don't do this now, the people can't be assessed, because if they're not assessed and they have to pay for it, they'll have to probably go out and borrow the money or tap into their
Yeah,
retirement.
if you don't do the project right now, the health department, the way I understand it, is going to act and mandate that everybody connects within so many days.
But I mean, can they be assessed then? Because the assessment means they'll pay it over 20 years.
Right.
But if they're forced to do it and go out and borrow the money, they're going to have to either tap into their reserves or borrow money with a higher rate of interest.
The answer to your question is that the only way we can legally do an assessment on the tax duplicate is if the county undertakes the project. Okay, if an individual undertakes the project, they're on their own. There's no way we can...
Individual, can they even do it individually if the laterals aren't in?
Well, the laterals can be put in fact, that's what's been going on. There are some people that are already using this sewer line, and the laterals go in, they work with the county engineer right now, and the laterals go in on a one-on-one basis. That can be done, and East River's been being done the same way. The idea here was to capture everybody in an aggregated cost to assist. We got involved with this because the health department issued notices to these homeowners, some of them, that they were going to force them to tap in. We were actually supposed to be the white knight in this whole thing and work with this. This board didn't cause this situation.
I know.
And, somewhere along the line, we became the goat, and undeservingly so.
Is there a middle ground?
Well,
I think the funds are available to relieve the cost a little bit here. John, am I correct?
Well, typically, Commissioner, this would be bonded out.
The county port portion, if we were to offer, Commissioner Moore suggested we offer some funds here.
Legally, the general fund could subsidize some or all of that if the board so desired. Or it can all be borrowed.
Ron, did you look into some CDBG money? I thought you were looking into that.
Yes, we looked into the CDBG, and we cannot participate in these programs. It's going to have to be on...
What about revolving loan?
The revolving loan fund, it's the same story as I answered the question last time. In order to use revolving loan for an infrastructure project, we have to have a company that is locating there, and jobs have to be produced.
Yeah,
And we
because I
don't-
know we used some of that before for a sewer
Right.
issue.
But that was tied to a company locating on that sewer line and producing jobs. I'm sorry.
Me too.
David, I heard you ask if there were a middle ground. You have a suggestion for a middle ground?
Yeah, it's a long
Pardon me?
As a lone Republican, I'm always looking for middle ground.
You're sitting in the middle. We even allow
I
you
know.
to sit there.
I'm so thankful.
So how much were you suggesting?
I think the total project's going to cost, well, who knows what's going to cost. These are all based on estimates, so.
You were suggesting that...
Well, the actual cost was $52.18, but the people are still going to have to pay $95.32, so you're looking at a difference of about, you know, $4,000.
The lateral
400.
cost,
Yeah,
what
the
was
lateral
that?
costs were $52.18, which is $417,000.
John, can we do this?
Commissioner, I'd like to go back in light of the 2% that was given and redo the numbers, if I may, before I would give you an instant answer on that, if the figure's about $400,000. I would like to review the finances.
Well, we're working on something in between right now.
I'll do my best, Commissioner.
Oh, we're trying to correct a past mistake here or whatever.
I'm waiting for a magic number.
Magic number's 400.
I should have brought my magic tricks.
Don't help him.
What is that, the 417,000, Betty? Is that what you're waiting to hear?
I think that was her
No.
motion.
Pardon me?
Commissioner Moore, can I add one thing? I'd like to clarify that figure you just stated.
Okay.
It's 82 connections at 5218. That's a total of $427,891.83.
Would you repeat that, Wayne?
It's a total of 427,
The whole thing?
891.83 is the total project estimated cost.
Sure, once that's in, then it's up to each individual homeowner to fight with the health department whether or not they have to tap in then.
That's correct.
That we would be out of the picture.
Yes.
And then it becomes an argument for the people on Mill Ridge who really don't need it. They can discuss it and fight it in court that way.
Right.
Because that's where I think a lot of this might end up. And I don't think we need to be in court, considering I think somebody, you know, it was way before everyone's time here, so.
John, can you have that information for us by next week?
Yes, I can.
Okay.
I
Can we
think
make
the
a
money's-
decision on this next week?
Well, what's the decision are we looking to make?
Well, you had a motion to fund the 427,000, didn't you?
Correct. If the money's there, then you'd support that?
Yes, I would.
Well, then
There's been no motion. There's been discussion, but I don't think there's been
Oh,
a
I thought
motion.
you
well, you want to get to, okay, I make a motion of 427,891. Dies for a second. Now, if...
Maybe not. Wow. You're defeating yourself.
I was just writing your
No,
motion.
but
I
you
didn't
know
get a
what?
second chance. Let it go.
No, the big issue here is, I don't want to get technical on this, but the big issue is here, if there's support for this, then I'd be willing to wait a week, okay? And then that's exciting to hear. So I think I would be willing to wait 1 week if there's support to do that.
If there's money, you have support.
Yeah, and John, I'll show you where the money's at.
No comment.
In the coffee can.
No. Can you let me know as soon as you get that information?
Yes.
Because then,
Yes.
if we're in disagreement, then we'll have a discussion, okay?
Okay. Fair enough.
Okay, so we're going to hold this item till next week?
Yes.
Unless somebody else has any other added comments, I don't think,
You mean, does anybody else have
Yeah.
that amount of money?
no.
Oh, okay. All right.
I appreciate everybody coming in today, even though there was no decision. I think it was a good discussion.
Okay, Madam Clerk, you want to move on?
So this is being put on hold till next week?
Yes.
Number 2, approve and enter into agreement with Cyber Inc., Greenwood Village, Colorado, in the amount of $323,840 for Phase 1 upgrade from 11.0.03 to 11I and travel expenses for the Oracle systems. This will be paid from account 00101-2001-450101, capital expenditures, contract services.
Thank you. Ernie, do you want to make a recommendation to the board? That's the third left.
Commissioner, I gave you a letter on the 21st of September detailing the final costs from both vendors, and Cyber still came in with the lower overall cost.
Do you still feel that, do you still stand by your February 12th memo, saying that we should bid out the total project and reevaluate the financials of the county, how they do their financials?
I've not backed off that letter, Commissioner.
Okay. Well, the camera
Okay.
looks good looking at you there.
Well, I want
Wait a
to,
minute.
I'd like to hear from some of the department heads that are here in regards to this issue.
Before we do that, I want to cap your September 21st letter said that Cyber's quotation is $317,940.
Correct.
Okay, then how do we get $323,840 on the agenda?
Because that was exactly what was on the agenda from last week.
Okay, thank you very
Both
much.
vendors have revised their proposals since last week.
Thank you. Thank you. Commissioner Vacy?
Yes. I would like to hear from some of the department heads that are going to be using this service.
Good morning, Mr. Stewart.
Good morning, Commissioners. Thank you for the invitation to be here. This Oracle RFP that has been in process for 19 months, the county can ill afford to put this decision off anymore. We may not be able to make pay-ins, pay our obligations or checks. We are under a de-supported database, and that's why we started back in March of '03. The county commissioners paid $15,000 to Naris Corporation to make an in-depth analysis. That in-depth analysis came out to a recommendation by Naris for professional services for $334,600. 19 months later, 50,000 emails later, 24 RFP changes, talking back and forth, constant meetings with the Oracle financial team, which was made up of commissioners, employees, auditor employees, data processing employees, and so on. We've come full circle. And it comes down to two vendors. We originally had about 6. It comes down to 2 vendors. Cyber Corporation, which is an out-of-state corporation, and Naris. And it really comes down to one component of the bid. And one component of the bid says, we think it'll take 23 days, business days, to work on the business practice of Lorain County. Naris Corporation, who has worked in this county for 3, maybe going on 4 years for the commissioners, for the auditor, for everyone. They know our people, they know our personnel, they know our habits. They believe it's going to be 40 days. Now that difference is about $18,000 to $20,000. I think the Oracle team had a meeting last Wednesday after Ernie had recommended to the commissioners to go with the lowest bid. If that is his charge, that is his charge. But out of all of those people who were at that meeting of the Oracle user group, that group recommended almost 9-to-1 to go with Naris Corporation, even though it was a little higher, because we believe that they know the county. They need to get this thing done. I don't think that with Cyber Corporation, who took Naris's analysis and spun their bid. They really have not made an in-depth study as Naris has in the past, or that they were commissioned to do. It would be my recommendation, the most responsive bid would be Naris.
Didn't Naris do that last week?
Do what?
Took it Cybers and then spun theirs down to match it? That's what was last time.
Well, if you take a look at the bid that was in May of '03, it was $334,600 for this exact implementation. My staff, your staff, back and forth between NARS, we have just been spinning our wheels. We are right back to where NARS told us to be. It is a complete waste of time on our part. If we don't get this done, we need to take action. This RFP is like, I'd like to say it's like a patient with heart trouble, clogged arteries. That's what this RFP process has been. We need action. We need a bypass. That's what we need here. We have a reluctant patient.
I think we need a new heart. That's why I'd like to get a new bid.
Mark, how many people were in this group meeting last week that you had, or the last meeting that you had? How many departments?
Well, we had budgetary there. We had purchasing there. We had the computer people with the Oracle database administrator, the treasurer, myself. I think we had Joyce Parks was there.
Basically,
Ernie was
all
there.
the users?
It was almost unanimous that all of the users thought that the most responsive bid and the bid that would be most comfortable with the Oracle user group would be NARS, even though it is not the lowest bid. But my point is, we've gone 19 months full circle. And I imagine next week we could get another proposal, and another proposal, and another proposal. But NARS has always worked under budget at our request.
So they could still come in lower than what they're saying here.
I don't know if they're here. Are they here? Yes. NARS is here today, so.
Yes.
If you'd like to hear from them.
Yes.
So.
Not that you wanted to.
He was jumping up and down in his seat. He could hardly contain himself.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Thank you for the opportunity, Commissioners. My name's Ed Vichulis. I'm the Vice President of Client Relations for NARS Corporation. We're headquartered here in Lorain County. In terms of the overall process, in describing what, from our perspective, how this has played out, Mr. Stewart is correct. About 19 months ago, we were contracted to do a study and take a look at your Oracle application environment. There are clearly some issues that I think your department heads could speak to in terms of how they do their day-to-day jobs and how the software is not configured properly to allow them to do that to the best of their abilities. We conducted this study. We put forth a quotation. The county chose not to act on that quotation for a year, year and a half. We were contacted about 4 or 5 weeks ago and instructed that the county wanted to revisit this situation. We said, that's fine. We'd like to help. Our premise all along has been we'd like to see the county make an educated decision about this because it's very important. We said, we need to understand what's the scope of the project, so to speak. If you'd like us to submit a quote, what would you like to see us submit a quote on? And the objective was for us to meet with the different departments, to re-engage discussions because it had been a year, year and a half, and to make sure that we were in agreement on what the services were that we were going to deliver. We scheduled that meeting. That meeting was canceled. We were then instructed that we were to resubmit our quote on 24 hours notice and say, give us a quote for what you feel is going to be best for the county. We came back and we submitted that quotation. There are 2 approaches to the project. We said there are 2 approaches. We're taking this approach, and this is our quotation. We've come to learn later on that there's another vendor that is likewise submitting quotations, and they've chosen a different path. Commissioner Moore, when you asked the question about last week, did we spin their bid? No, in fact, we didn't. We came in with our initial quotation and said, here's one approach. It's a little bit more thorough. There's a little bit more time that needs to be involved because we thought it's best for the county to do this the right way. You've had Oracle, you've had other companies come in and install Oracle. You have issues with it. We thought this is the chance, fresh start, rebuild the system from scratch. It'll work effectively. We were told...
Excuse me, are you rebuilding or upgrading?
There's two options you're
There's two.
offering.
You're going to be upgrading from an older version of the software to the newest version. To do that, there are two approaches. One is called a fresh installation, and the other is a technical upgrade. Our initial quotation was for the fresh installation. As I say, that allowed more time to talk with the departments, to understand how they conduct business, the different processes, and to try to maximize the use of the software. We submitted a quotation to that end because we were asked to submit a quotation for what we thought was best, not quotations for all the different options. We said there are two options, here's our quote, we think this option is the better of the two. Last week, we were told that the county had a quotation from another vendor for the other approach, which involves less time dedicated to analyzing business process, and we feel that there are some flaws with that approach because the way the software is set up today, some of those flaws could be carried forward. And presented with the decision to say, would you offer a quotation for that second approach? We said yes, but we want to make it very clear that second approach isn't going to be as effective as the first approach. And that's where...
Your study was fine. You know, I read it, and it opened up a lot of eyes in regards to whether or not we should even keep Oracle. And that was my concern, is whether or not to continue with Oracle or just to, as you just said, just scrap it and start over. But you're talking about scrapping and starting over with Oracle.
No, we're saying to actually to install the newer version of the software from scratch rather than taking what you've got in place and moving it over.
Okay.
All right, the next question I would have for you is, cyber has travel cost in here.
Yes.
Okay, since you're local, you wouldn't have that travel cost, it's almost $50,000.
There'd be no cost for travel.
Okay, but yet your cost is higher.
Yes.
$75,000.
Yeah.
Excuse me?
Your cost is like, what, $75,000 higher?
No, the bid that we submitted is $337,500.
Correct. And theirs is
17.
$275,000.
Well, that's labor only, yeah.
That's, I mean, if you want to back out
Right,
travel, that's what you're looking at.
325. 325 is labor only, theirs is
That's not the right way to do it.
257.
You have to add the travel. They got to come from Colorado, so they have to have
That's
travel.
Yeah, they still would have to, you're right.
But if you'd like me to respond to that,
50,000.
our quotation has more hours of time invested because we truly feel that it's going to take longer to do this.
And if it doesn't take longer, then this cost is reduced?
Yes, and our quotation is actually a quotation for an up-to bid. In other words, if we say that it's going to take a certain number of hours to complete the work, and the work is actually completed in less than that number of hours, that's what the county would be charged for.
Yeah, because they're looking at $29.92 an hour.
See, and the concern that we have in this process right now,
26.
Mr. Stewart raised the point about the other vendor, and apparently their proposal says that they're going to dedicate 23 days to looking at business practices for the county. Our quotation says we'll have a minimum of 40 days dedicated to analyzing the business practices of the county. Being that there's no formal process in place today, we could very easily stand up and say, well, for purposes of trying to win the bid, why don't we knock that number down to 30 days? So contractually, we'll simply say the county will have 30 days of business practice analysis. Our focus is more on the quality of the work. Because we could turn this into an auction where they'll say 23, we'll say 21, and they'll say 20. And the cost can just keep coming down, and the contract will read, we'll do 21 days or 19 days or whatever it is of business practice analysis, rather than dedicating the appropriate time to do the business practice analysis properly. That's been our position in submitting our quotes.
Other questions, commissioners?
No.
No.
I'm trying to see on your bid. I'm trying to see what you had on the software or the servers. Are you working in that 20? I showed 2,992 hours is what your bill. That's what you have written down for hours committed to the project. On your timeline, does that include the servers, working on the servers, and part of your?
We're not involved in the hardware, nor I don't know what our competitor has included, but we're assuming that this was for the software component of the implementation. We can offer you advice on the servers, but we wouldn't be the ones that would actually procure that computer equipment.
No, I know that. I just
that.
didn't know if you'd be part of the team that'd be working with the...
Absolutely. It's important for us to be working with your staff through that whole process to make sure that We understand what you're doing. We can offer some insights into considerations that you might have in procuring hardware for the system.
That would all be included under your hours. So if you're under your hours, then you're in there, right?
If we come in under our hours,
I mean,
that's...
just the hours continue when you continue to help out with other aspects of the job. Basically, it's like a bank, the hours.
I guess you could put it that way.
Yeah, I'm just trying
We've
to...
submitted a dollar figure out there and said, here's what we're proposing right now. If we
Right.
spend less time than that, we bill you for less than that.
Right,
And in our case, as is our business, if it takes us longer to do that, fine.
right.
As I say, our concern all along is there has never been this specification to say this is what it is. And as a local vendor, our company's headquartered in Lorain County. Those tax dollars would come back into Lorain County and into the state of Ohio if we're awarded this contract. All we're asking for is just to say, you know, if we're looking at an apples-to-apples comparison here.
What's the address? Where are you guys located out of?
We're headquartered in Lorain County,
I know, where?
Avon Lake,
I don't know, do you have an address?
33359 Bayberry.
Bayberry?
Yes.
Okay, because on the webpage, everything had a Cleveland address. I didn't know if that was...
No, we can verify that through the Secretary of
No,
State.
I know
if you
that. I
like.
just was asking if it was like, why everything said Cleveland.
That could be an oversight.
Oh, okay. A lot of people, when they start their companies, they usually use their home address, so...
As I say, our concern primarily is just that the county makes an educated decision. And we personally look at this, since we do this for a living, we don't look at this as necessarily a commodity type of an acquisition. Because as I say, we could get into an auction type of scenario where both companies could say, well, we'll drop our bid by 3 days, we'll drop our bid by 4 days. And we've tried to stand our ground and say there are two approaches. We've submitted a quotation for each one. And that's where we stand today.
Well, that's fine. I mean, I don't have any issues with you guys at all, or with cyber, either one. I have an issue with the whole project, so nothing against you guys, because you've been good, you know.
Thank you.
You know, the report was good. I enjoyed it, and I think that's probably why things got stalled, because I agreed that I'd rather just scrap the whole Oracle system and start. Because you're still talking about there's a phase 2 coming up after we do this one, correct? And that's going to be more money. What, another $300,000 maybe? Then there's the issue of...
Well, that depends. I mean, when we proposed the fresh installation, we thought that would cover the majority of the work. There's always going to be ongoing work associated with these projects, and there may be things that you could do where you can set up this system and say, you know what, we want to try to create an enhanced reporting system that might allow us to do other things. There could be future projects. That's going to be the case with any software you go with.
No, I agree. That would be nice.
You finished?
I'm finished.
Any other questions for us?
Not at the moment.
No, I appreciate coming in.
Thank you for the
very
opportunity to speak.
much. Mr. Nabokowski?
Madam Chairman, members of the Commission, my office is really a minor user on this system, but in a democracy, and this is a democracy, information system is really the mission-critical system that drives the process. And I would really urge you not to be penny-wise and pound foolish on this expenditure and get this thing done. I mean, it's very much late, but it should be done very much right.
Thank you. Anyone else? Commissioner Vacy, is there anyone else you want to ask?
No, I would move to go ahead with the NIRIS.
You want to stipulate an amount because there's a technical upgrade and there's a fresh install.
Well, first of all, what you got is a motion with, what we got is a resolution with a different company and different name.
Well,
My concern's going to be the future. If you make your motion to go with NIRIS, is Betty Montgomery's office and the auditor's office, they host all of their servers offline to save money, and they've saved tons of money. So if we're going to go with NORIS, I would like to have it in there so that they know going forward that I do not wish to spend more money on servers, whether or not that servers...
Effectiveness is, that's a separate decision, because hardware needs to be purchased. The machine has been shut down a couple of different times. It's over 4 years old.
how's the hardware now? Where is it at now?
It's down in the basement, and it's supported by the IT staff in the auditor's office. But the hardware with this new configuration, we need a new hardware and a new computer. So that's going to be no matter what. A new system is needed no matter what. So this is just the software component. So let's not complicate the issue here.
One way or the other.
That's what I'm getting at. I'd rather, if we can, basically, we have the ability to help control the future costs by
Right.
saying, because what's going to happen is some of these systems require 3 to 4 people to manage it, which means we're going to have to hire more bodies to manage the softwares. Or we go off-site, and you have Oracle can manage the servers off-site, which is a lot more effective, a lot more safer, especially...
But we don't have any comparison, anything to compare cost with right at this point.
I think there were. Some companies have showed, I mean, this is down the road. I'm just saying, if you
Yeah.
guys are going to go with Oracle, okay, if you want to do Oracle, all I'm saying is it's a lot more, you're going to have a lot more pressure, just like we did on this one for...
He's been in charge of this project for 18 months, I'll just say that.
He's right behind you.
I'd like to speak to that point. Actually, they're two independent decisions. You can choose to upgrade the software initially. And
With Oracle, then that's fine. All I'm saying is, I don't want more politics coming in to play